answer Q4, either A, B, C, or D. I'm going to the next slide. So last slide for today, I'm going to share a few best practices in the risk management. The first thing, as I also started with the Chinese proverb, where if you need water today, the well must have been done sometime back. So the planning must be done for the risk. What I mean is, we always would assume that something is going to go wrong in the project. So planning for the to accommodate the risk must be done as early as possible. The second important thing is, risks must be identified early in the project, not necessarily you encounter and then you believe that something in the middle of the project or towards the end of the project. As soon as you hear the requirements from your stakeholders, it is first thing is just go on and call all the team members who are part of your team and say that, yeah, we got a requirement, I would like to identify the risks. So that is an important one. Second one is, third one is communicate to stakeholders about the risks. Your stakeholders should always be informed on what is happening in the project. If you see that something is not going to work or is going to work, it is your responsibility to go on and communicate to the stakeholders. Fourth one, it is important that you need to consider both threats and opportunities. So threats are going to give the positive outcome, and then apologies. Threats are going to give the negative outcomes, and opportunities are going to give the positive outcomes. It is important that both need to be considered. It is important that you need to have a clear RACI. RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consult, and then inform. So the reason being, whenever you identify the risk, for each risk there should be someone who is responsible, accountable, consult, and then there should be someone who should be informed on the risk. Sixth one, it is important that you need to understand the priority of the risk. So some of the risks, I think I gave an example earlier. Some risks you need to go on and do find a mitigation or management plan within next 1 week, versus some risk we believe is going to happen 6 months down the line. Probably you will not be worried about the risk that is going to come 6 months down the line, and you would probably be more worried about the risk that is going to come next day or next week. Seventh important thing is, it is important that we need to work on only relevant risks. So two things that I mentioned earlier, qualitative and quantitative risk analysis is going to help us. So if you identify 100 risks, it's not worth to really look at all the 100 risks and then try to find solution, versus out of 100 you would only look at 10 risks which you believe are going to have highest probability and also highest impact. Then it is then we'll be able to save a lot of time. So 8th point, it's just not coming up with some strategies. It is important that we go on and implement those strategies. So that is also important one. 9th one, risk register, it should not be something which you create in the starting of the project and then shelve it. It has to be updated and then looked at, and then also it has to be circulated to the respective team members quite often. And the last point for today, there is always, whatever we do, there is always some inherent risk that is going to be there. So we just need to, not inherent risk, there will be some risks which will be remaining. And then I did not touch upon secondary risk something. Suppose what happens is, if you try to identify a mitigation strategy, let's say your team is not very, suppose let's say you wanted to start a new project, and then you would see there is a risk that your team's technical capabilities are not so great, and then the project may be not so successful. Then you would identify saying that, okay, I'm going to give this to a vendor. So vendor himself, vendor team itself can carry some other risks. So that's called secondary risk. So identified a risk mitigation plan, but the plan itself would carry additional risks. So it is important that those risks also should be or must be considered. The last question for today, I would read out for you. During project execution, a team member identifies a risk that is not in the risk register. What should we do first? You go on and look at the workaround, that is the option A. Re-evaluate the identified risk process. C, look for any unexpected effects. D, tell your management. Again, you could really look at answering either Q5, A, B, or C, or D. And I believe Keshav is going to post these questions a little later into the website as well. So if you're not able to note down any of these things, you can look at the website and then answer. So with that, I'm done with the risk management, and I'm open for questions. These are my contact details.